So for the base of the pyramid, they're looking at the cross section. So if they're looking at the perimeter of the base, they have to use the number 3 and the number 4. Those are the two legs of that triangle. But the number 5 is written on the back triangle. So right here, I'm saying this is the front that's closest to us. And then back here is where they're going to get the C length. So when they do the perimeter of that triangle, it's 3 plus 4 plus 5 equals 12. Any questions about that part? It's a lot going on in this formula. That's just step number 1. Step number 2 is find the lateral area by multiplying the perimeter times the height. So now this is where this little box is up here. That's telling you the lateral area and then the surface area. So you're using smaller formulas in a way, like perimeter, in order to use the other parts, the larger parts of the formula. So for the lateral area, you're talking about the perimeter times the height. Now here, you already got the perimeter is 12. Now when they're talking about height, they're talking about like the depth of the shape, the entire solid. So it becomes 12 times 12. So what you just figured out was the perimeter of the base and then the lateral area. And now you need to find the actual base that it's sitting on. So the one base that they're talking about is the cross section of the triangle. The other base, it says, find B, the area of the base. You're going to do the area like you would have done a regular triangle. So 1/2 of the base times the height. The base here is 4. The height is 3. So this becomes 1/2 of 4 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. So now this is the area of the triangle. Now you are adding the lateral area and the area of the bases to find the total surface area. So now the lateral area we already figured out was 144, then plus 2 of the bases. And we figured out that the base was 6. So 2 times 6 is 12, and you're adding that. So the surface area is 156. So now this one is a little more complicated because it has a lateral shape. And I think that pyramids can also be like that. So what we're going to do is try out this one think about math question, and then we'll also look at the pyramid on Math is Fun and see what you think about those two. So this one says, Shayla is decorating the outside of a cylindrical oatmeal box. So everybody's seen an oatmeal box before, right?
Yes.
So this is where you're talking about, okay, great. This is another example of a cylinder. So we said could be like paper towels, now oatmeal box, a soup can, or something like that. So now they're going to give you the dimensions of the oatmeal box, 24 centimeters high with a radius of 7 centimeters. And then how much surface area does Shayla have to cover? So take like about 2 to 3 minutes and see if you can work this one out.
Let's see. Surface area, I think it's 1/1300, I think it is. I think I got 7 times 7. It's 49. Wait, I think I got it. 49. think I got it. Single. I think it's 13.
So this one here is doing surface area. So you want to think about, and they're actually telling you that surface area in the question, but if they didn't say that, because they're saying the word like decorating and covering the outside, that's a clue that you're doing surface area and not volume. So volume would be filling up the oatmeal box with something else. Surface area is decorating it, painting it, glitter, like any of those kinds of things that we've already seen. So you want to start out with a surface area formula, which is 2 circles. That's what this part is. And then the other part that is going to be considered like the label. So now you're just replacing. So what was the radius?
7. No, it ain't.
It is.
Yeah.
So you're just going to put the 7 in both of those spots. And then what was the height?
49.
24.
49.
24.
24.
So when they're saying the box is 24 centimeters high, that's going to be the H, and the radius is 7. So everywhere you see a R, you're going to put the 7. So once you do that, you're just doing now the order of operations again. So where you would say 2 times pi times 49. And then 7 times 24.
168.
1364.
Yes.
Am I?
Yep, that was it.
That was it.
Oh, wait. Why 1364?
Wait.
There you go.
So now these are just my numbers. I'm not even sure what I used for pi. But you're rounding, right? So you can say about, because it depends, again, if you use 3.14 or if you use the pi symbol, right?
Okay, because I got 1153.04.
You definitely want to be in the 1300s. So now it just depends. What did you multiply?
430. 434. Oh, okay. Nope. Okay.
So
Okay.
you're starting out with the regular surface area formula. Your directions, of course, are going to say use 3.14 or use pi, or it's just going to say approximate, round. So it's going to tell you something to let you know. This one in the textbook is just saying, they're saying round 2 by saying about how much. So like any kind of word like about means you're just doing an approximate. So what you want to do though is this one is not, they're not telling you the diameter. So they're making it straightforward that they told you the radius, they told you the height, and they just want you to do the surface area. So something like this is, it's in words, but really all they're checking is, can you do the order of operations? So seems like most people had a hint of how to start with that one. So what we're going to do is go back to the textbook and look at the pyramid. So we're going to look at this here and look at this on Math is Fun. And then we'll have 2 more shapes for tomorrow. So here and this is the only one that we're going to do also. So on Math is Fun, there are different pyramids, of course, but the one that we're working with in the textbook is a right pyramid, where this is like the ones that you see, the Great Pyramids in Egypt. You know, there's a square at the bottom, and all of the faces are coming to a point, which is called the vertex. So this is another vocabulary word. In case they mention vertex, you know they're talking about the intersection, you know, of the triangles that are coming up from a square. So when we say pyramid, we just think of pyramid, right? But truthfully, there's a square bottom, and then there are 4 triangles that are meeting at a point. So when it comes to doing surface area, that's what you're going to think of again. And like we said, if it's a triangle on top of a rectangle, like maybe it's a house kind of structure, or it's a tent or something like that, we have to pay attention to if we even need to use the bottom when it comes to surface area. If it is just like the tent walls and you don't need a floor, you have to pay attention as you're doing the word problems. So this one is just the formula, and we'll see if it makes sense. It says a pyramid is a solid whose faces, except for the base, intersect at a point called the vertex. The formula for volume of a right pyramid is V equals 1/3 the base times the height, where B is the area of the base and H is the height. The formula for the surface area of a right pyramid is surface area equals 1/2 PL plus B, where P is the perimeter of the base, L is the slant height, and B, capital B, is the area of the base. So this is the information about pyramid that if you were going to do your index card still, this is what you want to draw so that you can understand the height is from the floor to the vertex. And the slant height is going to be on the outside triangle. So like we said, anything with a slant, the actual height could be different from the side length. And that's what you want to pay attention to. What is the actual height versus what is going to be the slant height? Because that's 2 different things in the formula. So in example number 6, it says, what is the volume of the pyramid shown? In order to find the volume, you're going to start with the formula, and then you're just going to replace. So step number 1, what is B, the area of the base? Because this is a right pyramid, the base is a square. So it's just 4 times 4 is 16. Now that you know the base, you can substitute that into the formula. The height is 7, and the base of the pyramid is 16. So now you're doing 1/3 times 16 times 7. And you get 37 1/3. The surface area, now you're using the next formula, find the perimeter of the base. This one is 7 as a square, so it's going to be 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7, or 4 times 7. So they're just telling you 2 different ways to find the perimeter of a square. You can either add up all the sides, or you can just multiply because all the sides are the same anyway. Either way, you're coming up to the number 28. So the capital P, the perimeter of the base, is 28. Now they're saying, what's the area of the base? That's a capital B. So now this is just 7 times 7 is 49. So those are the 2 numbers that you need to substitute into the formula. So you've got, now finally in step 3, they're telling you to use the surface area formula, which is 1/2 of the perimeter of the base times the slant length plus the area of the base. So that's how you're kind of translating that, like from algebra, but you found those 2 numbers already. So you're saying 1/2 of 28 times 9, which is on the outside, the slant, plus the 49. And now it's back to doing the order of operations. So you're going to say 1/2 of 28 is 14. 14 times 9 is 126. And then do the adding last. 126 plus 49 is 175.
Wow.
Last but not least, and we're flipping over to Math is Fun, is a right cone. So now this is still where from the point to the floor is a straight line, so it's going to make that right angle. And this could be like, you know, the yellow cones that you sometimes see in the street or anything. Could be, sometimes they do this with cups, like paper cups that you pull from a water fountain, or ice cream cones, right? So anything that would make this kind of a cone, whether it's face like down on the circle, or whether it's the circle is on top, like if you're drinking from a cup or something like that, or an ice cream cone. This is the formula for volume and surface area. So a cone is a solid in which a curved surface connects a circular base to a point called a vertex. The formula for the volume of a cone is V equals 1/3 pi r squared h, where r is the radius of the base and h is the height. So now this is another one, but if you notice, the pi r squared height is what formula?
Say that again. Formula for the volume.
What shape is pi r squared with height?
Was it
Triangle.
triangle?
A cylinder, right?
Yeah,
So the cone is 1/3 of the cylinder because the sides are kind of cut away, right? So these are how all the formulas are kind of connected. The pi r squared is the circle. The pi r squared with height is the cylinder. And now 1/3 of the pi r squared with height is a cone, because you're kind of like, just like a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. Because of that slant all the way around, you're cutting away 1/3 of the cylinder. So this is why this is the formula that it is.
So pi is, okay, for the singular, you said it's pi. Let me see if I got it right. The formula for the singular.
Cylinder is pi r squared.
Okay,
H.
okay.
So
right.
pi r squared is circle, pi r squared h is cylinder, and now 1/3 of the pi r squared h is a cone. So what we're doing is, when we label something like cone, what we're saying is we understand what the idea of a cone is. Just like we did when we said square, some of the more basic shapes. We're like, okay, the rules of a square is that there's 4 right angles, every side is the same length, right? So when somebody says the word square, you already understand all of those details. So if they say, oh, the side length is 5, they don't have to tell you it's 5 times 5 for area, or 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 for perimeter, because you're just now applying the rule of square. So this is now the same thing with the 3D shapes. We're saying a cone is 1/3 of a cylinder, really, and we're giving it a new name by calling it cone. Now at the bottom is the surface area, where you're saying that capital L is the lateral area, and that's equal to 1/2 the circumference of the base times the slant height. So now this one again is more complicated looking, and I would say probably you don't need to memorize these. If you even get this, it would be given to you probably your directions or on a drop down. But you have to know how to read it so that you can do the replacing, which is just algebra. So this is how sometimes your questions are overlapping, because you might get this kind of a question where they give you the formula, but the test is going to be, can you do the replacement or substitution? And then can you do the order of operation? So the question would really be geometry and algebra. And that's how, again, they're kind of like double or triple counting by the time you do your test. So this one is 1/2 times 2 pi r times the slant height equals pi r times the slant height. So what they're saying is, in this formula at the bottom, is that because you have 1/2 times 2, that can cancel it out. So the real formula is only pi r slant height. That's why they have like 2 equal signs. They're saying L equals 1/2 times 2 pi r times L. But to condense that, the 1/2 times 2 is going to cancel out as 1. So you don't even need that. You just need pi r slant height. And then surface area, pi r slant height, plus the circle that's at the bottom, which is pi r squared. So again, they're labeling surface area because that's going to be the consistent name for all the shapes. But when you're talking about the surface area, you're saying, what would I have to paint? So I would have to paint the bottom circle, and I would have to paint the cone part if I need to. Like if it's a wooden cone. If it's a cone like we see on the street, there's no circle to paint, right? That's just open. Or if it's an ice cream cone, it's also open. There's nothing to paint for that pi r squared part. So you really have to use your imagination depending on what the situation is that they actually give you. So we're just gonna take a look at this example and then do it on Math is Fun. So example number 8, the volume and the surface area of a cone. So they have, it says, Josh has a cone-shaped paper cup with a radius of 6 centimeters, a height of 8 centimeters, and a slant height of 10 centimeters. The cup has a circular lid. Find the volume and surface area of Josh's cup. So now the reason why they're telling you that it has a circular lid is so that you count that, right? Because a cup, there would be no circle to count if it was a cone-shaped cup. But they're giving you the information, the cup has a circular lid so that you count it. So in step number 1, they're gonna do volume. The volume of a cone is 1/3 of the cylinder. So what they're doing is 1/3 pi r squared height. They put 6 as the radius. So where they saw the r, they put the 6. Where they saw the h, they put the 8. So now they're saying 1/3 pi times 6 squared plus 8. They're going to do the squaring first because this is really just falling back to the order of operations. So 1/3 pi times 36 times 8. And also what they're doing is they're saving pi for last. Like we saw, sometimes pi is in your answer. So they're doing 36 times 8 and 1/3 of that and leaving pi. And then finally they're doing pi and they have the wavy equal signs about 301.6. So for volume, this is how much the cup could hold. It's got 301.6 cubic centimeters. For surface area, they're on pi r slant height plus the lid, pi r squared. So they're gonna put the 6 for the radius everywhere they see the r. So here's one r, that's 6. And then in the pi r squared, here's another r, so they put another 6. Then they have the slant height, which is 10. So pi times 6 times 10, they're doing the 6 times 10 first to make 60, and they're leaving pi. And then here they did 6 times 6 is 36, and they're leaving pi. So then they added up the 2. 60 plus 36 is 96 pi. So this is a good approach to do, is to do pi last, especially if you look at the answers and see the answers are still in pi. That means don't multiply times 3.14, just collect all of the things that you need to have to multiply with pi. So here you have 60 pi plus 36 pi. It's easier just to add up 96 pi. And occasionally that's gonna be the answer that you see on your test. But here, they finally multiply by pi and they get about 301.6. So the surface area is the same in this cone shape. So we still have another shape to go before we're gonna finish the textbook, but what we're gonna do now is go to Math is Fun. So we're going back to the pyramid. Can you see this one? Okay, good. So this one is the square pyramid. So on Math is Fun, if I go back one page, they actually have multiple pyramids, but this is really unlimited, you know, so that you can go into further areas or more advanced geometry, but I don't think that you're gonna really have to do that. So we're just gonna take a look at it a little bit. We mentioned the Great Pyramids already. This is the primary one that we're gonna do. So this one is calling the base, the square, and the apex, the point, which is the same vocabulary words. Here they are showing you that there are other kinds of pyramids and they're named after their base. So a triangular pyramid has the base of a triangle. The square pyramid is the one that we did, and the pentagonal pyramid has a base of a pentagon. So basically the pyramid just means whatever the base is, the sides come up to the vertex. Then they have the right pyramid, which is the one that we're talking about, versus the oblique pyramid where there's a slant in the pyramid. So all of the ones that we have done have created a right angle from coming down from the vertex to the center. They've also got regular and irregular, which I don't think you're gonna have. And then finally, they're talking about the area and volume. So
1/3.
they've got 1/3 the base times the height, which is similar, right, to the cone. So 1/3 of the base times the height is taking the same idea of you had a box and now you're taking 1/3 of that to make a pyramid. The cone is 1/3 of the cylinder. So where the cylinder has height, but you take 1/3 of that to make the cone, these two shapes are similar. And then they're doing the surface area, which is the base area, half of the perimeter times the slant length. So we are not going to do this quiz because they could bring up multiple kinds of pyramids. So the one that we're actually going to do, which I'm going to list on Google, is the square pyramid. But of course, you can take a look at other ones if you want to. If you're doing your cards, this is the same as what we saw for the other shapes that we looked at. They're trying to give you something to spin around so that, you know, you can get an idea of what to show in your imagination. And then if you click the word explode, it pulls apart the shape so that you can really say, what are the surfaces that I have to paint? So this would be the square bottom is red, and then the 4 walls that would come up from the square are different colors coming to a point. So these 4 walls, because they're going to come to a point, are triangles. When we look at the square bottom with 4 triangles, we call it a pyramid. So these are the interesting things it's saying. It has 5 faces. The 4 side faces are triangles. The base is a square. It has vertices, which is corner points, and it has edges. So these are things that you might want to draw. These are the same 2 formulas, surface area and then volume. I have a couple images, and it's just got a limited number of questions. So we're just going to do this one that's smaller so that we can avoid doing the other pyramids. And then they're talking about the pyramid and the cone, the reason why they're sometimes given together. So what they're saying, why is a pyramid like a cone? It's for that same idea of taking 1/3 of the shape. So this is something that you can move around if you want to be interactive with it. And then they're also telling you the formulas are the same. 1/3 the base times the height. For a circular cone, the base is pi r squared. So they're saying 1/3 pi r squared times the height. For the square pyramid, the base is a square. So it's the side squared. And it's 1/3 the side squared times the height. So they're just trying to make an comparison. And then here is the cone. So this is what we're saying is a solid cone if you were playing with blocks. But if you were looking like the example that we just gave, you're thinking of maybe you are using it like this and it's a cup or ice cream cone. If you flip it around, you can say maybe it's like the cones on the street where the bottom part would be, you know, empty and open, but on the street, right? So it depends on what they give you. Like the question we just had, it says it has a lid. So then you want to count the bottom. So here are the interesting things. It has a circle at one end and a point at the other end, a curved side. It's not the polyhedron because that is something with flat sides, flat surfaces. Then they give you the formulas again. and there's 10 questions for this one. So we're just gonna do these two, the one with 4 questions and the one with 10 questions, and see how it goes. So if you want more practice with this before we do the exercises, I can upload another document. So this one right here is a cone, but it's got a piece cut off of it. So we also can take a look at that one too, because it's not going all the way to a point. So what this one is saying, there's another word for this too that I can't remember, but they're calling it a truncated cone, which just means that something is cut off. And sometimes we see this with like cups, actually, right? So if you were looking at a cup, you might say it's not going to come to a full point. So if you were looking at a shape like this, maybe like if you got ice cream from someplace and it was in more of a cup, they might cut it off right here where it is tapered a little bit, but it doesn't come to a full point. So there is also a formula for figuring out how to do the truncated part, which is not in this textbook, but it is in another one. So we can take a look at it. So now what I'm going to do is say, if you have any questions when you try out the quizzes, that will let me know if we should do something else in between. So this one is the most challenging textbook. And these are the most challenging, I think, formulas. So you want to go slowly is the point that I'm trying to make. And you want to let me know if you have any questions. So what I'm going to say is we're going to do Math is Fun. Now, when you do Math is Fun, you have to send me the screenshot again, because I can't see that one. Depending on your screenshot, that will tell me if we should do something else in between. So if you are getting the 80, 90, 100%, that means that you're writing down the formula, you're replacing, and it's no problem. But if you get anything less than that, then we'll probably practice another page. So what I'm gonna say now is we're just gonna flip to looking at this picture for the week for 3 minutes, and then we'll be done with class. So now you don't have to answer this question yet, because this is the question for the week. But just to get you started, we're gonna see what you think.
With the guy with the flag, or?
No, I didn't finish putting it up yet.
Oh, I thought it was that one.
Which one?
It's the one for today.
Just came up, I think.
I just didn't put the link yet.
Received a couple of messages from you.
So here is the picture. And of course, like they always say, they're going to put up the caption of what was really happening in this story later on in the week. So we're just doing the what do you notice, what do you wonder type of thing to analyze photos.
Oh, wow.
So this is the picture. Some students have already started to make a comment. And what we said is you can divide a picture. So whether you have to do this for social studies or science, those are primarily the times you get graphs. You can divide the picture into quadrants if you want and look at it in a math perspective and say what's happening in the quadrant number 1, quadrant number 2, quadrant number 3, quadrant number 4. You can also look at it from a clock perspective and say 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. But what you're trying to do is not miss anything. So you can also look from top to bottom, from left to right, right? So you want to pay attention. So you want to say how many people are in this photo? Where does it look like they are? You know, what are their expressions? You know, that type of thing. Like, what do you think this could actually be about by not missing anything? And of course, it's a photo, so nothing's really labeled. So what I'm going to say is I'm just going to put you into the groups real quick to talk about what you think is happening. And then anytime today, tomorrow, Wednesday, you can go in and put what you think is happening. And you can also take a look at what the other students who are just using the New York Times have said as well. So I'm gonna put you in the breakout room for 3 minutes. So you can just hit to accept the invite and say what you think is happening.
Some type of room, but the room is maybe like awkward where you in the room where nobody actually see in the room but you. Or how you maybe somewhere where everybody thinks that you're not. Like a cover room, maybe like a library or maybe like some type of museum. We sit down and have talks about what's going on in the world. How can you actually tackle what's going on? Type of aspect. Like a museum or somewhere. They just sit down and
Something
talk.
like an auction for birds.
Looks like falcon, right? Are they falcons?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looked like they was auctioning them off.
Oh, that was auction?
Or like a display. It looked like a display of them. Like, you know, some at the top and at the bottom. It looked like they had tags on the strings or something like that.
Maybe those were for sale. Sales for selling. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the waiting room. Yeah.
It's a waiting room, but why they have birds inside there?
Yeah. I don't know. They're guarding the place.
Vultures?
Or
Are they eagles or
they look like eagles, owls. Don't they look like owls?
owls? Eagles? No, vultures? I don't know.
Because if you look at, they have like little masks in their.
Welcome back.
Only one who came back.
Everyone's gonna get kicked out soon. Everyone will be back. So take a look at their faces one more time.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Now, of course, when you look at it, you can zoom in a little bit, right? So I saw there was some conversation about them obviously being in a waiting room of some kind, right? And you're looking at how people are dressed, trying to figure out where the waiting room might be. Then you're looking at the birds and saying what kind of birds they are and how the birds look. So I did notice that some people said things about how the birds were positioned and what people seem to be doing. So you're looking at facial expressions, right? And I heard a couple comments that maybe they're for sale or maybe it's an auction of some kind because people are on their phones also. So who knows, right? But you're going to write down what you did notice. So it could be any of those things. And then also what you're wondering, which could be where is it or what are they doing or, you know, are they selling them or are they buying them? So this is all the things that you're thinking of in the who, what, when, where, why, how. And of course, the analyzing of what do you think? So every time you look at a photo, you're also looking at the 7 senses. What are the thoughts that you think? Like, what are the feelings? Because sometimes when you look at a photo, you're looking at people's expressions to try to capture an emotion. And then you have the regular sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, right? So even if you can't really smell and taste photos, a lot of times when you look at food, animals, it conjures up a smell or taste, right? Because you're trying to bring it to life as much as you can. So everything doesn't always apply, of course, but you're using those things to help you analyze and to help you write, like we said. So we haven't written in a while. I might put up an essay for anyone who still has the writing test to do, maybe next week. But you're just remembering what the who, what, when, where, why, how is, and what the senses are, because that helps you either pull something apart, like a photo or a graph, or put something together, like your own paragraph or your own essay. It gives you the next thing that you could write about. So that's what we're going to do for the week. So if it's fresh in your mind, you can do it today. Or you can just look at the picture again today and look at what other students wrote and write it tomorrow if you're interested. So that is it. How was your weekend?
Great.
It was good. It was good. It was good.
We're
How
at
was yours?
7.
And you?
How was your weekend?
My weekend was great. I was happy to get, I think one day was nice. Was that Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
One day was
Saturday.
really warm where I was really happy and like, yes, finally it's going to be like spring. But like Zoila said, I appreciate the rain also.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for the spring to kick in, you know, that's all. So here we are, week 7. If you saw my question in the morning, this was a question that all of the teachers talked about.
Oh, I did
Was
answer.
if you had to give your quarantine a name from a movie, what would it be? So I picked Home Alone. I don't know if anybody ever saw that movie, because it's kind of an old movie.
Yes.
Home
But
Alone.
at
Yeah.
first, we were
I
having
like
a
the
blast
one.
during quarantine. So we were cooking, playing dress up, just like how he was in Home Alone. Like, yay, it's great to have the house to yourself. But now in week 7, it's feeling like the zombie apocalypse. So
I like that one.
I don't know if you ever saw 28 Days Later. Have you
Yes, I
seen that
did.
movie? I actually like
Yes.
horror movies and zombie movies.
Mhm.
So that one, the guy wakes up in the hospital and he's trying to figure out what's happening just by looking at all the signs and looking at the newspapers floating around. But he's just wondering, like, why did I wake up in the hospital and the whole world seems different? Every time I go out now, I'm seeing like medical gloves on the ground.
I know, and even masks, they don't listen.
I know, so now we're gonna have a whole bunch of litter because
Yes.
of COVID, right? But I'm just like, is this the zombie apocalypse? And people are very cautious too. So you can't get too close to anyone. Like people are very on edge. It
Mhm.
seems like when you go to the supermarket, they're very, you know. So I'm like, it started out happy and fun, like Home Alone. And now I don't know. It's World War Z, 28 Days Later, Zombie Land, one of those.
I like the one you had put on the message, waking up zombie apocalypse. I like that one.
So if you can think of one, just hit reply. If a funny movie comes up that you can think, somebody, I think one of the teachers said Groundhog's Day. If you remember that movie with Bill Murray, where every day he wakes up and it's the same thing. He feels like it's that day. That's a classic movie that I think is really funny. And somebody else said The Mask with Jim Carrey. So if you think of something that really symbolizes your experience in the last 7 weeks, feel free to reply so we can all get a laugh at week 7.
Okay.
And if you have any questions, or you can put a song, whatever you think of, something that a song or a movie or a TV show. But if you have any questions, of course, from Math is Fun, you can take a picture and send it to me. Based on what you get on your scores, we're either going to take a detour and try a foundational kind of handout, or tomorrow we're moving on to the sphere, and then that'll be the last shape before we do the textbook.
Are you going to send us anything through the class?
Through Google Classroom?
Yes, yes.
Yes, I am. I'm going to put up the 2 quizzes on from Math is Fun. So like right now, let me see. It's a little bit out of order.
Okay.
So right now for the 27th through the 1st, we just have what's going on in this picture.
Okay.
There's also something kind of like along the lines of Earth Day from last week. There's a short film that you can watch for science, and then the textbook is up there. So the only thing that I have to put up, really that's for tomorrow. It's already saying April 28th. For today, it's just gonna be the math is fun. So that'll go up in like two minutes if you wanna, if you're in the mood to do it now.
We have to send you a picture for that too, right?
Yes. So if you're on the computer and you do the screenshot, you can upload the picture privately as part of your assignment, or you can text me the picture on, I mean, you definitely want to hit, what's the word? You want to hit submit still.
Oh, okay.
So for me, I don't care how you send it to me. Some people are emailing it, some people are texting it, and some people are loading it in Google as their submission. Either way, if you text me, you still want to hit submit on Google, because that's the one place where Ms. Gould is coming to see who's participating. So I'm still going to give you participation credit, but for anything that you do, you want to hit submit on Google Classroom also.
All right.
Okay. Okay.
Do you get the week time that I'm been doing or not?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Are you?
So
Yeah.
I'm putting in your attendance, but if you're coming all the time to this class, you want to still hit what's matching the class, which is so last week it was the task exercise book. So for all of those, we did them kind of live, but you still want to hit submit, submit, submit. So I'm still giving you credit when you show up to the class, but
Okay.
for it to look the best way, you might as well hit submit. Otherwise, it kind of seems like you're here, I'm giving you credit. I know you're doing it because we're working on them. You're working on them in the breakout rooms, but then it just seems like you didn't hand in the assignment. So I know it can be awkward because we've got like 5 different websites and a Zoom class, right? It's a lot going on. So just, I would say, try to hit submit on Google Classroom the most, even if you're just doing it after the fact, right? However you send me the proof of your score is fine with me. So because some people are working on their cell phone, it makes it easy to just do the screenshot and text it from Remind. Other people are working on their laptop, which maybe it makes it easy to email. Some other people they have no problem using Google Classroom. So for them, either way, they would log into Google Classroom on their phone or on email. So I'm just saying that Google Classroom is the easiest, streamlined way for you too to hold everything in order in a way. Because sometimes text messages, they're gonna move by date, right? And your email, depends on how much email you get, it could get lost unless you create a folder that's just about Mercer. Then you could put all the stuff in that folder if you want to organize yourself. But I think the reason why we're using Google Classroom is to be the most organized, so that if you're like, oh, what did I get last week or 2 weeks ago? You can just go back to Google Classroom and have everything be there. So we're trying to do it that way so that you can also use it even when we go back to class and say, hey, for the end of March, April, and May, all of my work is in one place on Google Classroom. So hopefully that makes sense. I am getting everything when you send it to me, and hopefully I'm going to do a better job responding and at least say received or a thumbs up on Remind, so that you get something that lets you know that I'm receiving it.
Am I sending things correctly?
Yeah, so I'm getting your pictures.
I don't have the
Email
pictures.
is fine.
Okay.
That's the only thing that you have to send me pictures for is study jams and math is fun, because we are not in classrooms for those two. So when it pops up for you, I can't see your score. The only thing I can see is your time in Aztec and your score and time in Khan Academy. So what I don't want is, because there's no rush. So I don't want you to not feel comfortable and then we do the rest of the textbook. So I want to see what your score is in case for like a day or two, we do a different textbook or we just focus on the formulas. So that's what I'm waiting for. And on that note, I hope you have a great day. And I'll be
Okay.
looking
Thank
for
you.
your
Thank you, Mr.
scores.
Great, thank you.
It's
You
great
too,
to
have
see
a good
you.
one.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you soon.